nice is that?
I know, it's very heartwarming.
Oh,
I don't feel like I deserve that.
Yeah, can we do that again? No. I could do that all day. Thank you very much, everyone. UTS Startups Confessions. So we started this almost a year ago, and the basic premise was people don't really talk about what happened in their journeys, and then other people start their journeys and make the same mistakes or don't learn from the things that they figured out worked really well. So wouldn't it be nice if people talked about what really happened so that other people can learn from that? And it's been really awkward for me because every week I have to ask people about things that they may not normally talk about. And I have to rely on the kindness of people and really good people to share what happened to them on their journeys. And this is a particularly tricky one. So if you watch one UTS Startups Confession, this needs to be it. And we've had really good ones, so that means a lot. We have with us UTS Startup number 1. Woo! And probably definitely one of the most impressive people I've ever known in terms of ability to execute, wrangle resources, make things happen that no one else manages to make happen. I feel lucky sitting next to you, Tim, but I'm also, seriously,
I'm gonna leave.
we got so lucky with the early UTS startups that joined, but particularly number 1. And we continue to be lucky that you stayed engaged in the community, and now will be joining us in some of the work that we do, but we'll get to what that is in a second. So, I'll get back on script. Shut up, Muzz. And no one wants to hear me. Who were you, Tim, before startup number 1, RESISTx?
Right. So my career has largely been defined by spending a lot of time working in data centers, working with operations teams, doing big IT projects, managed services, those types of things. I had when I first joined UTS as an MBA of entrepreneurship student, I think at that time I'd been like 18, 19 years in enterprise IT. And as you probably pick up from the accent, that's the reason why I'm in Australia in the first instance, was to come here as part of a big migration project that turned into more of a permanent role and ultimately turned Australia to home. But yeah, that's what I was. I was basically just I started out as a tech nerd and then became a tech nerd manager and then started managing regions of tech nerds. And yeah.
Okay, I think that's a common journey. Like people get into tech because they like it, they do a bit, and then they manage other people doing tech, and then kind of sucks the fun out of it. But let's not dwell on that. Where did the idea of RESISTx come from? What's your first memory?
Yeah, so I mean, technology was always like a big inspiration for me. So everything that I did in my life was pretty much mediated through tech. But in addition to that, interestingly, coming to Australia kind of unlocked this whole new interest in fitness. At the time when I was in the States, where I came from, you know, the idea of being into fitness, I suppose, was a bit frowned upon. You know, you were kind of a weirdo if you were like drinking protein shakes and eating high protein meals and this and that.
You still are. Sorry. Just trying to make myself feel better, yeah.
We're gonna have an offline conversation about this. But no, I came to Australia and I was just blown away by how fit everyone was and just how normalized the idea was. And so I got really into weightlifting when I came here, like bodybuilding in particular. And so the whole idea behind RESISTx was, you know, an attempt by me to find an intersection between these two passions of mine, you know, a life mediated by technology and a life enriched by technology, and this really keen interest in weightlifting. So the whole thought behind RESISTx was to basically try to reduce the friction for people who wanted to get into weightlifting. You know, I've always had a very strongly held belief that it is truly an activity for everyone. It's not just like a, you know, just like a gym bro kind of activity. Like it's incredibly beneficial from the youngest to the most geriatric person on the planet. And I wanted to build something that would help unlock that experience for other people. That's where RESISTx ultimately came in. I mean, the opportunity ultimately to do it was driven by UTS. Like this was what, 2016, 2017-ish. I had gone to a talk at the Great Hall on entrepreneurship. There was this dude there, Jochen Schweitzer. He's talking about, fostering the next generation of entrepreneurs and how Australia needs to be focused on, creating new businesses, not, just teaching people how to get jobs. I was inspired, and as part of the program entry requirements, you had to have an idea. So I thought, what a great opportunity to take this thing I'm interested in doing, building this app, and going and getting the educational foundation I need to make it real.
Okay. I love Jochen. All my best ideas come from Jochen. Thank you very much.
He is awesome.
Yeah.
If you're watching, Jochen, thank you.
But tell me about that journey. So I like ideas that you care about because it motivates you to work on things. I take it you got that from it, but what did the journey look like?
Yeah, so it was interesting because the structure of the MBAE program is such that your idea is the thing that you work on through the program. So for the second and third of the 3 semesters, you're basically focused almost completely on your startup. So I was just taking it through that process. I had already done a lot of things like user interviews and whatnot, all the market research type stuff that you do. I didn't really know how to make any sense of it until I took this one subject. I think it was second semester, the entrepreneurship and innovation practice, which really just changed the way that I think about the world. It was basically a design thinking subject. It was the first time I had really been seriously exposed to these concepts, and it gave me the framework to really work out what I was doing with it. And it was from there that I realized that I thought I had landed on a problem based on the work I had done. May not have actually been the right problem to work on, but I believed it nonetheless. And so I literally, like YouTube, Coursera. I have a computer science degree, but it was from many years prior, like before phones were smart, right? So I didn't know how to code apps. So I'm taking online courses to learn how to build cross-platform mobile apps. Learning how to use Firebase, and, building scalable online apps, and ultimately was able to put together a working prototype of RESISTx. Did a little bit of field testing with it, used it myself for a little bit, and it was okay. It was okay. But in the end, I discovered that it was just a much bigger engineering problem than I was ready to handle to build a good app. Building good apps is hard. At least, I know it's getting easier and easier with tools like low and no code tools that are available these days. But what I was trying to do, heavily data-driven, without the UX and UI background, without the engineering background, I just didn't have the chops to pull it off myself. And so ultimately, that project delivered a degree of success. Went to a couple pitching competitions, won some money, but in the end, yeah, it ultimately didn't work out.
What do you take from that?
Yeah.
And acknowledging, putting a lot of work into something and that maybe not working out, but having learning outcomes and other positive ones. It's one thing to say that, but it's still a big chunk of effort. So this is difficult to ask about, but what do you take from that?
Yeah, RESISTx, like I said, was born out of the intersection of 2 passions of mine. And while I don't think that there's anything wrong with being passionate about what you do, I think that's maybe the ideal state. That's probably not where most people find the most success. Is my ultimate takeaway. I had to shoehorn myself into a set of skills that I just did not have in pursuit of this passion project. I learned heaps, but in the end, I was literally too passionate about it. I was so passionate, in fact, about the solution to this perceived problem that I ignored the fact that I myself was not even using my own app to track my own workouts. That's how self-deceiving founders can be when they just get down and just execute the hell out of whatever it is that they're working on. And being so committed to the idea that they just don't question it. They don't actually seek the validation from it. So yeah, it was a huge pitfall for me.
But I think that is drummed into people as well, that you have to have conviction for your things, you have to be convincing to other people, and then you do that and do that and you do that more, and that becomes who you are, and that's your idea, and that becomes your personality, and it's really hard to escape at that point. This kind of keeps me awake at night, that you look at the, why are we okay with across venture capital 100 companies getting investment and one of them paying back the portfolio? Like if you care about the people, that's probably not okay. If you care about the financial return, fine. But I care about the people. I don't care about the portfolio return. So that makes me think a lot, and stories like that make me think a lot, and I know they make you think as well. Where did that take you next?
Yeah, so my sort of dual realization that I hadn't actually landed on a useful problem to solve, like I wasn't using my own app, and not having the skills to build an app and scale it in the first place, kind of just like totally in the wrong business for someone like me. I thought, okay, I still care about fitness. I am going to immerse myself. At the time, I'd already quit my job, so I had heaps of time. And so I registered to do my Cert 3 and Cert 4 in fitness. And I thought, okay, I'll become a PT. I'll learn this industry. I'll experience what my potential customers experience. And from that, I will find a problem to work on. And so, I did my research, looked at all the RTOs, connected with a really top-rated RTO called Clean Health. Yeah, signed up for their courses, and quickly came to know the owner of the place. We developed a bit of a rapport. I think he recognized early, like my technology and systems and operations background quite early. I guess I didn't talk like the traditional sort of person coming in to get their Cert 3 and 4 in fitness, which is usually like someone who's just graduated from year 12, just looking for a job. I was kind of an outlier in that regard. Yeah, and so, one thing led to another. I thought to myself, okay, well, learning this industry, maybe I can work with this owner of an RTO. They also had a gym as part of the RTO, so it's very fitness oriented. I pitched to him a version of RESISTx that was more focused on helping PTs scale their online business. Because at that point, I had started training with them. I was working with one of their PTs. None of them were online at that point. I thought, yeah, technology can help these people. I was like trying to find another problem to work on, basically. And his response literally changed the trajectory of my life for the following 3 years. He said, that's a really interesting solution. That's not the problem I have. The problem I have is I have all of this bespoke, non-accredited education that I'm delivering manually by flying my PTs around Australia and around the globe. And I have all of this demand for these courses, but I can only deliver them in cohorts of 50 at a time. I need to put this online. I'm an RTO in a gym. I have no idea how to do that. Do you know how to do that? Legit insider secret, I didn't know how to do that. But that wasn't my answer. My answer was yes. Not that I know how to do it. I said, yes, I can do that. Yeah, Coursera was born from there. I think that conversation happened something like September 2017, and by November 2017, we had a contract. Yeah, it was interesting because the thing that at that point was motivating me was finding a problem that someone would actually pay for. I wouldn't use my old RESISTx solution to solve my own problem for free. I was like, okay, I need to find a problem that someone is willing to actually pay me to fix. And here we were looking at a contract worth, 6 figures with, some upside built into it that could scale to 7 figures and beyond. And I'm like, okay, that's where the money is. That's the problem I'm going to solve. And so Coursera was born, this company here.
And that's the thing, if someone said that to me, I'd say, heck yes, as well. Because especially when there's how many people doing that kind of work around the world? It'd be
not a ton.
But in terms of people that you could then service that are like that person that offer that money.
Oh, right. Yeah, so look, I mean, the fitness professional education space is pretty big. If you follow Instagram traps, you'll find there are these fitfluencer people who do conferences all over the globe. So yeah, it did feel like, a significant addressable market for sure.
And why was then the right time for that kind of service?
Yeah, it's a good question. It was, Coursera ultimately became like the most bespoke of bespoke digital agencies you could imagine. Like we became truly a fantastic one-trick pony, custom built around solving this customer's specific need. And honestly, like the way that I ultimately ended up building it, because I went from like, okay, executed contract worth lots and lots of money with lots of upside if I play my cards right, to just pure execute. I fell back into my old pattern of just simply building that passion and just doing it, not questioning anymore. And so, questions around like, okay, is what I'm building applicable to other RTOs, other fitness educators, anyone else? Can I sell this to anyone? And I didn't even get to that question until a good 2 years in, as we were staring down the barrel of the end of the contract. And that's when I started thinking about it. How do I scale this? Because at the time, we were a team at our peak. We were 6 people working out of UTS Startups just down the street. And like, we worked our asses off. Like, all we did was pump out course after course after course. By the way, I told this guy, yes, I can do that. And we did do it. Like, we did a fantastic job of it. And I've got all the stats to prove it. NPS scores through the roof. They were truly able to unlock a whole new line of business through online education on the back of the work that we did. But that work did not scale. It was incredibly labor intensive. I ghost wrote, is that the proper way to say it? I wrote over 500,000 words worth of script as part of this contract, which I think is something close to 2 theses, like 2 PhD theses, something like that, worth of material. Like, I would go attend their course and turn it into an online script, but I did that. And that's just like one small piece. Everyone on the team contributed a tremendous amount, but it was all just built around this one customer. So, why was it the right time? The right solution for the right time? It was the right solution for that business at that specific time. And maybe there were other businesses, but I just never found them because I got so lost in the doing.
Do you think it was the right time? It sounds like it definitely was the right time for that company to do that thing.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
And were they leveraging platforms or something else to kind of have reach or deliver something interesting?
Yeah, so that's the thing is they, like, as an RTO, delivering just in-person education and a gym, doing everything in person, there wasn't a ton of technology in the place. And so, we were able to leverage tools to make ourselves look magical. Something as simple as putting together a project plan on a spreadsheet on Google Sheets was like mind-blowing. I remember, like, before I even knew what it meant to have a digital agency, I knew I was trying to build these online video lessons. And so, I had to figure out how to animate. But I'm not an animator. So, it's like Google Powtoons. For those who don't know, Powtoons is just like a very simple tool that you can go and make cartoony kind of animations.
How? P-A-L?
P-O-W, POW.
Powtoons.
Yeah, like
Okay.
POW.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a really cool tool. And, it let me build, like, it's embarrassing now to me because it was like nothing compared to the quality we were producing when we really found our rhythm and learned what to do. But it was enough to show this RTO that, hey, we can actually generate animated content that, conveys your content in a compelling way that's fun, educational. But I wouldn't have been able to put that proposal together if not for having familiarity with a lot of these tools and for things like Powtoons to exist. Because I didn't have animators. I didn't know how to animate. So I had to figure out how do I solve that problem.
This is the thing, like, raise your hand if you've played with GPT-3 or variants of it. It's like, and other tools that are coming through at the moment that are this scary in the quality of stuff that they're generating.
Yeah.
And this is the world that we live in, where the technology-enabled entrepreneurs that can then do things that no one could do before.
Yeah. You say scary, I say exciting.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's mind-blowing, the kind of stuff that's happening. And I'm sure we'll talk about it, but like the kinds of skills that I'm currently focused on are exactly in these tools that allow people to just be superhuman.
Well, let's get to that, because I think the lesson from that sounds like it was a fantastic solution, but to a very direct niche.
Mm. Yeah, I over-niched.
Over-niched. Niching is normally good, but the right niche.
Yeah.
And seeing this kind of sea of people that are making money from platforms in education and e-commerce and other things that these giant platforms are enabling that didn't exist 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Being part of that and seeing other people kind of benefit from the work that you're doing. One thing I'll say one thing and then share something. I don't think incredible people make incredible companies. I think incredible opportunities make incredible companies. And for the opportunities that are surrounding everyone, I've seen so many people that are the right kind of person to launch a company that for one reason or another don't end up doing what they were trying to do. And it really annoys me that this is the system that we work in that is completely unfair to individuals. And I don't want to shovel people into that. I want to shovel people into things that are realizing where the opportunities are and are saying, try that tool, check out this platform, look at what this person sitting next to you is doing, and learn from that, be inspired by that, and be less focused on the grand idea. Grand ideas are fine as long as you know what you're getting yourself into. But I think they can be incredibly dangerous as well if you don't, or if you're this extremely passionate. So I'm extremely happy to say we've got an incredible team at UTS Startups, but it is now more incredible than ever because you're coming on board as our lead of startup support. As, again, the most incredible executor I've known, as one of the most pleasant people I've ever spent time with, and as someone who has lived that journey of people talk about startups and encourage this, and here is the lived experience of what that kind of entails and the challenges that presents, and the comfort level. It's one thing to be a 20-year-old kind of, which I was a long time ago, encouraging a lot of people to be ambitious and shoot for the stars and use, this methodology. When you actually go through it and you see a lot of people go through it, then you start to feel a bit differently about how that sits and whether that's okay. And the reason I'm so excited about working with you on this is you are now one of the people I respect most in understanding the power of platforms and how they can be unlocked to use data to inform entrepreneurial decisions and enable people that don't have a lot of money behind them or a lot of tech skills or a lot of whatever else to create their own jobs and build up something that's very rapidly creating money, which is a strong flavor of what we're going to be heading into, I think. But I'll throw to you because in your future world, which you're creating now, what is the UTS startups of the future that does make sense for a lot of entrepreneurs coming through?
It's what you say about the power of new platforms. It resonates really deeply with me, and the ability to leverage these platforms to generate value in, say, like a more predictable way. The journeys that I've been on have been very much kind of moonshot attempts at building something really massive, really meaningful, and I think we both agree, like, there's nothing wrong with that per se, like, as you say, as long as you know what you're getting into. I didn't necessarily know what I was getting into in terms of, like, the real risk, but I also had the benefit of gainful employment. I was able to take a calculated risk, take time off from my career and work off savings. So, like, I was never really in danger, not the way that someone who's just out of school might be.
When you've got your career in IT and you can just walk into a large company and make more than any person here can possibly make, then you can probably take some risk.
It's a huge privilege.
It's a privilege to have you here as well because of that.
You gotta stop doing that, man.
Yeah, give us a word. But it's still a risk that people don't understand.
Yeah. But when I think through, how we can build a UTS Startups that not only continues to scale incredibly as it has been, but also just delivers outsized impact, I like kind of like replay what my life could have been like had I walked through those doors, less committed to a particular idea and more committed to gaining the skills and the knowledge it takes to identify opportunities to generate value, i.e. make revenue, and to execute on them quickly and to not get emotional about it. And so attached to the thing that I want to sell, the thing that I want to do, but instead say, market, what do you want me to do? I lost. It's hard to speak in these negative terms, right? Because I didn't lose, I didn't fail. I learned a lot. Like I couldn't be here saying what I'm saying if not for the journey that I've been on. But at the same time, it could have been quite different had I had access to tools like, for example, the rapid self-employment program that's under development now. This idea that you can be very systematic about leveraging platforms to identify trends, leveraging other platforms to turn those trends into high in-demand products, and then to leverage yet other platforms to sell those products to a global community of willing and eager buyers, all while literally committing cents, like literally pennies to do this. And this is the kind of entrepreneurial opportunity that just did not exist when I got started, and certainly didn't exist when I first started going to uni and started building my career. And as I think through, like, what could I have done if, for example, I didn't have to worry about how much runway I've got left in savings? What could I have really achieved if I could put 100% of my mental capital toward, working on a deep, interesting problem space rather than always worrying about the next bill? And like, it's, you never know what would have happened, but I think that would have been a much more productive way to go. And, when it came to thinking about, doing this versus what I've done traditionally, working in enterprise IT, yeah, sure. I mean, IT is an overpaid industry. I mean, like when you just look at the skills that individuals bring to it, for whatever reason, people in IT just make a ton of money. Great for them. It was great for me, but at the same time, it's like I just didn't feel the level of impact that I wanted to feel. When I think about what can be accomplished here, through making those changes to the program that allow us to increase the impact that we're having with each startup, like that's truly exciting to me. So there's that piece. There's the idea of like the communities at a scale now, where like when I joined, obviously one person, one startup, but it grew pretty quickly. But it was it was a very close knit, small community. Not a whole lot of people turning through the office in the first year or so. And now to have grown, to an active community of over 500 startups, with a portfolio of 1,000 plus now. Like that's just a ton of skills, a ton of people who are doing things at all levels of the revenue spectrum, who are doing all different types of business models, social impact stuff, selling to governments, selling to big businesses, e-commerce. Like it just runs the gamut. And when you think about like having access to a community of people like that, and the kinds of things that, like, okay, great if you want to go learn from like, the top person in XYZ, but that person is like so far away from you. Like, do they even remember? Is the context that they're working from even relevant to the thing that you're doing today? The world has just moved so fast. Like we now have like a critical mass within startups where we can start building, peer-to-peer learning opportunities where you can go learn from the person who did what you were, who was where you were 6 months ago, right? And you can learn, okay, what does it take now to get to where you are? Yeah. And like we're starting to get to that point where we can create some of those smaller leapfrog opportunities through the community, through peer-to-peer learning. That's also very exciting. Like, when I came to startups, the value was being around people who were working hard. Like, I had my little startup buddies on level 2 in 608, and we'd sort of commiserate about our customers and about the challenges. There was that, and then having a co-working space, right? Yeah. Now we're at a point where it's like we can actually change the whole trajectory of your entrepreneurial journey. And I think that's very exciting to be a part of. That was the main reason why I wanted to join, was to be a part of that journey.
It's hard to follow that, yeah. Let's think about that for a second, because like people talk about industry engagement in universities as a way of helping students learn about different things. I like the kind of market engagement you get from having a lot of startups, because out of that, some will do better than others, and then you can figure out, okay, the surviving population of people kind of know what they're doing, because they've tried a couple of things and have figured out that's working, and they're learning from each other, and now that kind of network of B2B companies are sharing a lot and figuring out what's happening and how to do certain things. that as a learning tool, I find very valuable. And it's not what you can get from a book, it's what you can see people doing and what they're willing to share. Like, we'll confess a little bit here, but you'll confess more in private. And that happens inside spaces. It doesn't happen on Zoom calls. I'm sorry, people don't do it. We've tried, they don't. They need to be humans being humans with each other.
Yeah.
So it's nice to be at that kind of scale where that can happen. I know we're called UTS Startups. And for me, if I could go back, maybe we'd reconsider that as a name, because that has a lot of connotations to people, and different kinds of people take it in different ways. And a lot of people take it as, okay, you're just doing global kind of VC requiring kind of companies. And they're fine, like I said, but you can't do that for 1,000 companies in Australia with the capital environment that we have. You can get 1,000 people to create their own jobs and then be as ambitious as they want to be on top of that.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing. So, but it's going to be a fun couple of years ahead with yourself, and I'll flag also Pete Davison as a core of that kind of way of thinking as well, for keeping me in check for the last 4 years. Pete, if you're watching, thank you very much for everything. To go from investing in PayPal and Pinterest and everything else to saying, I don't like this anymore, I want people to make money and move things along and not be requiring those kind of models, is an incredible kind of journey to be on for him, and for him to then share that with us and contribute to the Pete's Rapid Self-Employment Program and other ways of thinking and what we do is incredible. But it's exciting times ahead. I think if people watching need to remember anything, and this is a question without notice, sorry it wasn't in the list, but if people need to remember anything from this, what is it? And we'll leave them with that.
Wow. Remember anything. Well, maybe I'll just pretend like there's, you know, the 20-year-old version of me on the other end of the live stream.
Yeah, perfect.
How about that? Because I don't know what message resonates with most people, but I know for me, I've done a lot of fooling myself in my life. You know, both of my startups were based on false premise that in hindsight is 100% obvious, and even if there were, you know, just like a little bit of an intelligent inquiry into what I was up to at the time, like contemporaneously, it would have been quite clear that I was barking up the wrong tree. But I didn't see it, and I think, you know, I would just encourage that version of me to just really think through carefully what it is you're trying to do, what matters to you, what are you trying to accomplish? Okay, you want to create a legacy. Why? Like, what does that achieve? What does that even mean? You know, how durable is this legacy going to be of yours? Is anyone going to remember your business when you're long gone? You know, like, and what are you going to give up to get that? Is that really what matters to you? You know, is it that you're dissatisfied with your job and you're trying to find alternatives to traditional employment? You know, well, there are many answers to that problem, not necessarily, you know, moonshot startups, right? But there's a whole menu of entrepreneurial opportunities, especially in our modern technology-enabled age. You know, UTS Startups is a great place to come and learn some of that stuff. You know, so I think that would be my focus, is like, just be really clear about what matters to you and be honest with yourself. If it's, you just want to make a ton of money and go, you know, retire on a tropical island, like, just be honest with yourself. That's what you want to do. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. And I think we've grown up in a culture where, you know, there are just certain things that we've just been, like, have been banged into us to value. And unfortunately, enjoying your life just hasn't been one of them. Yeah. You know, I think that this whole time I've been chasing after some dream that I couldn't actually see. And I finally feel like I'm getting some clarity on what that is. You know, this late in the game, I don't know, like, we're probably roughly the same age, I'm guessing. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, I really hope, every couple of years I look back at myself and think, what an idiot. Yeah. I hope that continues, because that's probably a sign of progress.
Yeah, agreed.
Or a low base, one of the two. So probably. Okay, we will wrap there. But I will say, like, after a difficult couple of years, knowing that we can start next year with yourself and the kind of future of UTS Startups being informed by yourself and Pete and everyone else here in a direction that is, people talk about inclusion a lot and most of it is rubbish, but we are genuinely designing in an inclusive way where it's not just elite people that are able to start these companies. That makes me very happy. That gives me a lot of confidence in the safety and progress of a lot of people, and I'm just excited. Thank you very much for being willing to join us and make that into what it can be. Thank you for sharing your journeys today. And thank you in advance for all the people that are watching this and Googling for UTS Startups and trying to figure out how to apply, because we'll see you next year.
And if you go to that application and you decide that this is not for me, send me an email, because I want to know why.
Yeah.
Because I think if you're willing to click on the link to the application, we probably are for you.
Beautiful. Round of applause, please. One thing I forgot to mention, every week we run this, 3:30 in UTS Startups at Central. The best pizzas I've ever had in my life, thanks to AWS. Thank you, AWS. Except for next week, because we're not doing it next week. We're taking a break until January 20th. January 20th. So for people watching, we'll be back then, but every Friday we'll see you here. Thanks very much. Could you kill on yourself? Nope. My screen is not working. I'm still live. Hey guys, thanks for watching.
We don't know how to hang up the phone.
We're about to break into disco mode.